Good morning. I'm Robert White, Council Member at Large and Chair of the Committee on Housing. Today is Thursday, January 15th, 2026. The time is 10:07 a.m., and we are meeting in room 123 of the John A. Wilson Building and on Zoom. I'm calling to order this public roundtable on five appointment resolutions: PR 26-457, the Housing Production Trust Fund Board Stephen Glaude Confirmation Resolution of 2025, PR 26-458, Housing Production Trust Fund Board Sasha Gay Angus Confirmation Resolution of 2025, PR 26-477, Housing Production Trust Fund Board Stacy uh, Burnbash Confirmation Resolution of 2025, PR 26-441, the Board of Directors of DC Housing Finance Agency, Heather Wellington, Confirmation Resolution of 2025, PR 26-442, Board of Directors of the DC Housing Finance Agency, Johannes Fuller, Confirmation Resolution of 2025, and PR 26-490, Director of Office on Returning Citizens Affairs, Talib Shakir, confirmation resolution of 2025. I want to thank you all for being with us today and thank all the nominees for being here. With one person who was absent, had to be absent today. Today, we'll be speaking with nominees to the Housing Production Trust Fund Board, the DC Housing Finance Agency Board, and the Director of the Office of Returning Citizens Affairs. The role that you are nominated for carry immense responsibility, and for board positions, little financial reward. We thank you all for your willingness to serve and dedicate your time and expertise to improving the district. The Housing Production Trust Fund, housed within the Department of Housing and Community Development, or DHCD, is one of the district's most important tools for supporting affordable housing, and the advisory board helps guide the decisions on where those dollars are spent. As the city faces an affordable housing crisis, this is no easy feat. Serving on the board requires serious expertise, vision, and thoughtfulness. I want to welcome Stephen Glaude, Sasha Gay Angus, Stacy uh, Bern, Bierenbosch, and our HPTF nominees today. I want to note that Sasha Gay Angus is unable to join due to a scheduling conflict, but she has communicated extensively with us, and we will be in touch with her regarding any additional questions. We also heard from Patrick McEnany at our legislative hearing on Tuesday, the 13th. We have two nominees, as I mentioned earlier, for the DC Housing Finance Agency Board. The Board of DC HFA sets strategic direction and ensures sound governance, all with an eye toward the agency's ultimate goal to increase affordable housing. We rely on the DCHFA and the HPTF to keep production, preservation, and homeownership opportunities alive in the district, so guidance on their board is crucial. Finally, we will consider the nomination of Director of Office of Returning Citizens Affairs, or as the community calls it, MORCA. The importance of supporting people as they return home from incarceration cannot be overstated, especially in those early days after release. As many of you know, I became very interested in this issue following the incarceration and release of my brother, seeing the hurdles that he had to jump through or try to jump through, and the lack of resources forced me to make a commitment that if I was ever in a position to help and support and prioritize returning citizens who almost never get prioritized, that I would do that. And with that promise, I have expanded the size of Morca from a tiny agency when I got here to an agency of 19 people, an agency that had a budget of a couple $100,000 to now about a million, a little more than $1 million. Had very few programs, and we've added programs like the transportation stipend, for the first time ever, housing vouchers specific for returning citizens. We have funded the paralegal program at Georgetown and passed a bill that came to us from returning citizens, restoring the right to vote for incarcerated people, making the District of Columbia the only jurisdiction in the nation that has undone this remaining relic of Jim Crow. If folks know the history of voting in the United States, did not originally exclude incarcerated people. It happened over time. It happened deliberately to exclude Black people from the franchise. And while the Supreme Court And Congress and the presidents have over time gotten rid of things like literacy tests and poll taxes, every one of those Jim Crow relics to keep Black people out of the ballot box has been done away with, except for felony disenfranchisement. So we will continue working to expand this right in other states. Um, but the early period when people return home from incarceration is crucial. And we need an agency, a strong agency like MORCA, to serve as that touch point that has and maintains the trust of citizens who are returning to help them stabilize. Because once they get stabilized, more often than not, they're going to be good. But we have to help them stabilize. So we've done a lot of work in that space, and the work is not yet finished. But I hope our work reflects a sustained commitment by the council and this committee to ensure reentry policy is practical, adequately resourced, and accountable to results. MORCA is in a moment of transition. It's structure change during the last year's budget cycle, and the former director, Director Carey, has moved into the role of Director of Community Affairs, and I want to congratulate him. This transition presents an opportunity not only to clarify MORCA's vision and strength and coordination across DC agencies, but also to reset expectations around early engagement with the council on major reentry initiatives. As an example, MORCA did not participate in the recent hearing on Project Homecoming, a proposal with significant implications for reentry housing and for MORCA's operational responsibilities. I'm grateful that the office will provide written testimony, but going forward, consistent in-person engagement on initiatives of this scale is essential. Today, we expect to ask Mr. Shakur about Project Homecoming, how he views MORCA's role in similar efforts, and how the office would prepare to take on new responsibilities should such legislation move forward. I first met Mr. Shakur during my first term on the council when he was running a program. I was incredibly impressed with this gentleman. I remember leaving that program believing fully that he was going to do more great things. And I had always hoped that I would have the opportunity to see it. And so when he came to service in the district government and I saw his face, it gave me great joy. And every time I see you, I'm filled with a lot of joy. And my expectations for you are high. Hopefully, your expectations of yourself are higher. Um, but I know your ability and potential, so we'll hold you to nothing less. But we'll, if you're confirmed, support you fully. So I look forward to hearing from our witnesses and speaking with our nominees today about the experience, perspective, and leadership they would bring to these roles and how they plan to deliver meaningful results for district residents. I don't think we have any colleagues to make opening statements. Okay. So, quick logistical note before we start hearing testimony. Ground rules for public witnesses. I think we only have one. Everyone should have received the witness list yesterday. I will call one panel of public witnesses, and yeah, you'll have 4 minutes to testify. We only have one witness. Okay. Public witnesses have 4 minutes to testify. Um, Last note, I make this at every hearing. If I'm looking down or typing during your testimony, it is not because I'm not listening. It is because I am taking notes. My staff may look down for the same reason or to administer the hearing. But when folks come before our committee, it is important that they understand that there's a level of respect, and I never want people to take my not looking at you as a sign of disrespect or lack of engagement. I'm actually trying to make sure I'm absorbing and documenting what you're saying. So with that, let me call our public witness, Robert Vincent Branham. Welcome. If there is anybody else who has not signed up to testify who would like to testify, please come to the table at this time. Doing well. No, no. Do you want to testify? Don't let him tell you. Do you want to testify? Please come to the witness table. Thank you. All right. I hope it's not bad or I just set up the No, I'm going to ask you to come to the witness table. If you're going to say something brief, you're going to have to do it. Yes. Yes. This is going to be our only panel of public witnesses. Perfect. All right. Robert Vincent Branham, you can begin your testimony. Welcome.
Greetings and salutations, Chairman Robert White and members of the committee. I am Robert Vincent Branham, President Emeritus of the D.C. Federation of Civic Associations, Chairman Emeritus of the Ward 5 Democratic Committee, and I am a former ANC Commissioner. I am a service-connected disabled and retired veteran. Mr. Chairman, I am here this morning to testify in strong support of PR 260457 Housing Production Trust Fund Board Stephen Glaude Confirmation Resolution of 2025. The Bible tells us whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ that you are serving. Steve is currently the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Coalition for Nonprofit Housing and Economic Development. Steve works hard and well for the Advanced Equity Community Economic Development Solutions in the District of Columbia. If I may submit another supplication, may the work I've done speak for me. This isn't a direct Bible verse, but it reflects biblical principles, where Paul talks about finishing his race and the crown of righteousness. This is not a homegoing testimony, but a testimony in recognition of work done and a reward for service. Steve has shown himself worthy and ready for this mayoral appointment, and I urge the committee and the council to approve this resolution. Finally, Mr. Chairman, there was one more thing I have to say. Thank you. I thank Steve. Not for the man he is, the man God made him. There was a line from the Bible, when I was sick, he visited me. Mr. Chairman, several years ago, when I was sick in the hospital, he visited me. And I say again, I thank him. While I'm here and can get myself composed, I want to publicize the fact that there will be a meeting on Black men to talk about and organize on issues dealing with health, voting, and returning citizenship and holding elected leaders accountable. It's going to be Saturday, February the 7th at Matthews Memorial Baptist Church. And in the remaining minute, Mr. Chairman, this comment is not directed at you, but I do want to say that I have testified before this council on budget and oversight and for people, other persons' confirmation. I have given my blood, sweat, and tears, physically threatened. I've had bullets in my home, forced to leave under police protection. I am cognizant of budget issues, and I am insulted and I feel disrespected that one of your colleagues on this council intimated that I don't have the intellectual capacity to serve as an interim appointment to this council, and I find that offensive. I was arrested twice for DC Home Rule and women's rights, and to be implied that I don't have the intellectual capacity, I find offensive and repugnant. We may disagree on issues, but not my intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can begin your testimony if you would put your name on the record as well. Hit the button on the base of the microphone. One more time. There we are.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I'm here to support Mr. Talib Shakura. This is about leadership matters, and I didn't have something written out. That's why I said brief.
All right.
And I know this is something dear to me, reentry. I know 5, 6 years ago, I wanted that job. I didn't get it for whatever reason, but I am thoroughly, thoroughly pleased with this appointment. That's why I'm here. I don't know if you're familiar with the Dow documentary, Prison Experiment, what happened when the Bureau of Prison hired a former gang leader. That's about us. It's over 1 million views now. It's been out for like almost 2 years, and it's about the experience me going into Cumberland, giving the speech, about me going to Cumberland, giving a speech, and training the leaders of Cumberland how to run my program over 18-month period. The program hit a snag, and because of his leadership, the program took off. When he took over the chairman of that program, it took off. And that's what I'm here, support his leadership. Because I always say leadership matters. Now we finally got a leader in that position, and I'm here to support him. Another thing, it was supposed to have been 4 or 5 other young leaders of Young Minds Incorporated, but it was their first time here. They tried to find parking. They ran around now, but I wanted them to speak on his behalf because they 24 and under. And this is the new wave of DC of having the youth teach the youth. Because what we figured out that a lot of OGs don't have that swag no more with our youngsters. So what we did was we coached up the 8 to the 24-year-olds, and we quickly found out that you had a lot of leaders in that group, a lot of young people that running their own business. So we coached them up. So we took them over to DYS first because we wanted to see the relationship. And it was like magic. And these youngsters, they wanted to come and really support him because of his leadership to them. They wanted to let y'all know that, we're getting a good leader, a good director for Mocha.
Couple quick things. One, would you put your name on the record?
Dominic Ara Henry.
Mr. Henry, I was glad to see you walk in. The program that I saw Mr. Shakir facilitate
Yeah.
was your program.
Yeah.
And so you talk about two people I have great respect for. It is you two. One of those young people, if they find parking, I will make sure they.
Y'all late, man. Excuse me.
If they find parking, I will. I'll make room for them to testify. It's important for us to hear from them.
Okay.
If they don't find parking, I'll see with my team if we can get a video link for them to testify virtually
Okay.
from wherever they are in the car or wherever. So hopefully we'll be able to get them on the record. So I'll let you coordinate that and just
All right.
let my team know if you're able to coordinate it, and we'll make sure we get.
And it's an honor to see you again, man.
Right.
I ain't seen you in a while, sir.
I appreciate it. Really good to see you too. Again, just talk about like people that I have immense respect for, and make me smile when I see you all succeeding. It's two of you. So having you here in support of the nominee is important.
Yeah.
And having a record of that support is important as well.
Yeah.
So thank you.
He's him.
Yeah.
Speak 3 languages.
Look, I'm excited about it. And Mr. Branham, I appreciate your testimony. If I ever am nominated for something, I know who I want speaking on my behalf. But I appreciate you. Yes, indeed. Thank you. You've been deeply ingrained in the community for years, and if you're only going to come testify in support of somebody you believe in. So I take your testimony with a high measure, and the humanity you spoke to matters as well. You know, it is one thing to have technical expertise, but you got to have a heart in order to really make the headway that we need to on things like housing, because there's only so much the market can do. The market is for numbers, but that's not where the heart is. So we need both those things on our board. So I appreciate your testimony. It is valuable to this committee. Thank you very much. Well, thank our public witnesses. We're going to move to our nominees, but again, if these young people can testify in person or virtually, we will accommodate it. So we may end up breaking up the panels a little more. But we are going to start with the Housing Production Trust Fund Board nominees, Stephen Glaude and Sasha, no, not, and Stacy Birnbosch. Um, uh, Wait, is it some of them or all of them? All right. I apologize. We're gonna delay you for a minute. So sorry. The young people always win in here. So all right. So we will have our next panel of public witnesses. I know you all just walked in, so um, uh, you know we, you're in good hands here. I'm gonna invite you to the witness table, um, and you will have 4 minutes to testify, and let me let you get your seats first. So what I'm going to ask you to do is start with your name, and you can give your testimony. There's no right or wrong way to do it, so don't no concern about that. Uh, Ladies first, unless you defer. So it is your choice, ma'am, who testifies first. There we go. You hit the button on the base of your microphone. Perfect.
Hello, hello. Okay. How's everybody doing today? My name is Tariq Turnipseed from Prince George's County, Maryland. I've been involved with YMI, Young Minds Incorporated, actually a leader, a part of Young Minds Incorporated alongside of Talib as well. Just learning from the experiences that he's had in life. For a young man like myself who didn't really have the guidance growing up, didn't have mentorship growing up, it was very important to see a positive influence in the community, somebody that was a leader. Maybe, you know, they made mistakes in the future, but in the past, but somebody who corrected that and wanted to really lead young men to a positive life. For me, I've made mistakes in my past, and just to see an example of somebody that was able to correct the wrongs and lead, I see a leader in a community. I see somebody who genuinely cares about making a change as well, and that's something that's very important for not just me, but the future generation as well. So I'm super excited to call Talib a brother, somebody who I definitely respect in the community as well. And, you know, I look forward to him doing very big things in the community and making a difference as well. And just, you know, one day, you know, living up to it as well. So I appreciate the time, appreciate the ability to speak for you guys here today. And what we're doing, we're changing the narrative, you know, changing the narrative of what that looks like for young success, older success, giving hope back into our community. So very excited for this year and the years to come as well. So
Excellent.
yeah,
Well, thank you for being with us, Mr. Turnipseed.
thank you.
You can begin your testimony. If you would start with your name, please.
Good morning. My name is Bernia Jackson from Montgomery County, and I'm a licensed therapist working with Young Minds Incorporated. It has been a pleasure and an honor to be able to work alongside Mr. Talib. He has, it's honestly an honor to be able to see someone come into the community after being incarcerated and being a positive force for the young gentlemen that we serve at DYRS. And I've seen him come into the facility and be able to speak light into the young boys there, but also to be able to have them witness what it's like to return to their community and be able to serve and go back into those places and be able to inspire the next generation. And I believe that Talib is an exemplar of what it looks like to return to your community and to be able to inspire the young boys behind him and the young individuals. He's been able to support us with so much infrastructure with Young Minds Incorporated, with creating systems and databases and all of the things. He's a very intelligent being, speaks a number of languages, and just very influential in our community. And so as a licensed therapist, I'm honored to testify on his behalf and knowing and ensuring that he will do what is right for our young people in our community in Washington, D.C. and afar. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you so much. I appreciate you both being with us. Glad we were able to accommodate your testimonies. It's important to hear from folks who know our nominees to speak on their behalf. I know Mr. Shakur a bit myself, but often we don't know the nominees, and so hearing their technical expertise is important, but hearing who they are as people matters a lot as well. So thank you very much for bringing testimony today on his behalf.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm going to bring our two nominees back up. I was hoping to reduce the number of times I mispronounce Ms. Berenbach's name. Please come up so you can correct me, who I know but don't know how to pronounce your name. Unfortunately, I apologize. So please forgive me and correct me. And Mr. Glaude. Would you hit your microphone, please?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Committee on Housing. I'm Stephen Glaude, President and CEO of the Coalition DC, formerly known as the Coalition for Nonprofit Housing and Economic Development, or CNHED. I want to thank you for holding this hearing for the proposed appointments to the Housing Production Trust Fund Advisory Board. I would also like to thank Mayor Bowser for her appointment, not for nominating me to this important advisory position. Established in 2000, the Coalition DC is a dynamic association of 180 nonprofits and mission-driven for-profit members working to foster just and equitable community development solutions that address the needs and aspirations of low and moderate income District of Columbia residents. The Coalition's members represent a broad spectrum of nonprofits, for-profits, and government agencies that build, preserve, and manage affordable housing, protect tenants' rights, offer homeownership counseling, lead capital to small businesses, connect residents to career pathways, deliver critical family services, and engage, represent, and benefit low and moderate income residents of the district. We also operate 6 high-impact initiatives that include our Landlord Partnership Fund, our Small Building Financing Strategy, our Procurement Initiative, and our Senior Home Repair Program, and more. My history with housing goes back to the 80s, where at the National Association of Neighborhoods, before I became their president and CEO, I managed our national rent control campaign. Years later, as Deputy Assistant Secretary at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, I managed approximately $2.5 billion in federal programs, including the Community Development Block Grant Program and other programs which are noted in my written testimony. The HBTF is the primary tool that affordable housing developers and providers use to develop affordable housing in the district. The Coalition's advocacy for sustained investments, as well as program improvements for the HBTF, is the cornerstone of our advocacy work. We know how important this resource is and further understand the complexity of balancing the various housing needs and realities involved in HBTF success. My hope is that the advisory board will be a cross-sector resource to ensuring statutory compliance, offering insights from HPTF partners, continuing the program's effectiveness, as well as aiding flexible use when contemporary conditions warrant such. It is my, and I believe my fellow appointees' intent to be a resource to the DHCD, the housing industry, housing advocates, the council, and most importantly, the residents of the district, the intended beneficiaries of the HBTF. I would commit to provide a forward-looking, collaborative, and fair perspective to the advisory board's guidance and review, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding my willingness or my ability to serve in this important capacity.
Thank you very much. And apologies, I forgot in the change in panels to swear you both in as
I mean, I
nominees.
gotta say it all over again?
You don't, but I'm gonna take when I swear you in, I'm gonna take it as confirmation that that is retroactive. So I ask that you raise your right hand. You can sit.
Stay, okay.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the Committee on Housing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much, and you can begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson White, members of the committee, and staff. My name is Stacy Barenbach, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today. And thank you to Muriel Bowser for nominating me to serve on the DC Housing Production Trust Fund Advisory Board.
Could you move the microphone
Oh,
closer to you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Better? Housing affordability is the district's most urgent challenge, and the Housing Production Trust Fund is one of our strongest tools to address it. For more than 2 decades, I've dedicated my career to strengthening community-based organizations and expanding access to safe, stable, and affordable homes. My early career grounded me in the belief that when communities have the right tools and support, they can transform their own futures. I started my career at a firm supporting nonprofit social service organizations with fundraising and strategy efforts. As a Peace Corps volunteer in Latvia, I helped build a sustainable NGO resource center and national training programs supporting a nascent ecosystem of community-based organizations. Following my Peace Corps service, I enrolled in graduate school where I focused on urban policy and nonprofit management. I gained significant exposure to the affordable housing and community development movement and became hooked on an industry that connected mission, capital, and community. I deepened my technical knowledge of affordable housing at the Local Initiative Support Corporation, a national CDFI where I provided technical assistance training and lending to nonprofits and local housing authorities striving to preserve federally assisted housing threatened by expiring restrictions, aging buildings, and market displacement. It gave me a front row seat to the ongoing pressure that put affordable housing at risk and the tailored mission-driven solutions required to save it. In 2008, I joined the district's Department of Housing and Community Development to contribute more directly to the mission in my adopted hometown. Despite the constrained private investment during that era, it was also a moment of meaningful progress. DHCD advanced sustainable building practices, expanded rental assistance and partnerships to better serve households coming out of homelessness, implemented inclusionary zoning, and strategically deployed neighborhood stabilization funds to turn vacant foreclosed properties into community assets. Those years showed me what is possible when the district aligns policy resources and local expertise towards a shared goal. Today, I serve as Vice President of Real Estate on the development team at Enterprise Community Development. As you know, Enterprise Community Partners is a national nonprofit that exists to make good home possible for the millions of families without one. As the largest nonprofit affordable housing provider in the Mid-Atlantic, Enterprise Community Development specializes in high-impact residential development, preservation, property management, and resident services. We operate 18 apartment properties in the district and have invested over $700 million since 1999, preserving and constructing over 3,000 rental homes that provide affordable housing to over 5,000 low and moderate income district residents. Many of these homes were developed or preserved with the Housing Production Trust Fund, low-income housing tax credits, and tax-exempt bond financing. Residents are at the heart of our work, and ECD reinvests a substantial portion of revenues in programs and services to advance our residents' social, educational, financial, and physical well-being. In my role, I have led the substantial renovation and creation of more than 2,500 homes in DC and Maryland. With my team, I am tasked with executing layered financing plans, juggling the expectations of public and private financing partners, designing and constructing homes that meet the highest sustainability standards, while also conforming designs to zoning restrictions and concerns of community stakeholders. After the ribbon cutting, our asset management, resident service, and property management teams continue to navigate the complex maze of operating and compliance requirements needed to successfully meet the obligations of our partners and residents we serve. It is exceptionally challenging and gratifying work. The Housing Production Trust Fund has been instrumental in making these homes possible. It serves as a model to other jurisdictions, and I applaud the mayor and council for their sustained commitment and investment. Yet, again, as you know, those investments and communities they support face significant risk. Operating revenues are declining, operating costs are rising. Demand for public financing exceeds available resources, and investor caution is increasing, leading to fewer capital commitments in the district. Key revenue sources tied to commercial real estate have not rebounded to pre-pandemic levels. These pressures mean fewer resources to reinvest in aging properties and build new homes. It has made our work even more complex. Despite these challenges, the need for housing in general and affordable housing in particular has never been more acute. Public support for affordable housing has never been stronger. Planning efforts present significant opportunities to ensure housing continues to be a focus as neighborhoods grow and develop. This is a moment to both evaluate existing tools and create new ones to clearly meet today's need head on. This moment of crisis presents an opportunity to strengthen our housing ecosystem and develop strategies that sustain existing homes while producing new ones across all 8 wards. As an advisory board member, I look forward to sharing my expertise and knowledge to provide strategic guidance to the mayor to ensure that the Housing Production Trust Fund continues to be a model for others, both regionally and nationally. I look forward to working with my fellow advisory board members and the mayor in this role. Thank you, Chairperson White, for the opportunity to testify, and I would be happy to respond to questions.
Thank you both very much. And I'm going to ask you both to speak up and maybe move the microphone closer to you. Some members of the public are having trouble. You may have to scoot your chair over, Ms. Barenbeck. So let me mention, I have known Steve Glaudet for a number of years, somebody that also has a profound story that I recommend folks hear one day or read one day. And it's somebody that I do call for advice and guidance because he understands both the policy and the politics, and sometimes I need help wading through all that stuff. So I was excited to see your name as a nominee. Ms. Barenbeck, I've done a lot of work with Enterprise over the years. It's an organization I have a lot of respect for that sits at this like cross section of development management, but on the affordability side. So a really important organization and perspective. So very glad to see your names here today. I want to start on a housing issue that I think we have to focus much more on, and always want to be clear, not at the expense of production, but in addition to production, we have to focus on housing preservation. The vast majority of housing, especially apartment buildings in our city, are 50 years old or older. They're old, and those often are the affordable places. And so when those disappear, we lose residents. That is a source of displacement. And I secured an extra $30 million for preservation in the trust fund for this fiscal year, and continue to say publicly that the city needs to make an intentional policy shift toward preservation. I'd like to get your thoughts on preservation, where we are and where you think we need to go.
Stacy will probably have a more comprehensive response, so I'm gonna dive in first.
Turn your microphone on.
I think that you're absolutely right. That preservation. I'd like to add a layer of consideration. For the last 2 years, LISC and the coalition have been working on a small building initiative, 5 to 49 unit buildings. And one of the amazing things, JP Morgan invested in us doing some design work before we actually did work. So we were able to look at data, we were able to do anecdotal interviews, talk with Urban Institute and more. And we started with 2 assumptions that were wrong. The first assumption was that these buildings carried predominantly rent burden families, and that these buildings were largely owned by slumlords. So when we were looking at our intervention work, we were thinking we were going to be adding yet another layer of assistance to rent burden families. What we discovered was that that was where our economically mobile Black and brown people were living and being displaced from because they could not, as their income and their lives improved, their aspiration for better living conditions improved as well. They waited patiently for landlords to fix up their buildings. When those repairs didn't come, they decided to leave. And then once they walked out of their front door, they still couldn't afford the DC market. One of our biggest areas of displacement receipt is Calvert County. It used to be Prince George's and Arlington and Allentown, and we're moving further. The other thing that we thought, one of our assumptions was slumlords, that these buildings, well, 81% of these buildings are single property owners. 71% of them are district residents. And when you put those two data points together, what we're seeing is that many families, DC residents, investing in real estate as their wealth building strategy. These buildings, in many cases, weren't properly financed in the first place, making them by year 15, 20, and 25 in need of repair assistance or interim financing, and there was no interim financing strategy. So I think that you're right. We really need to focus on preservation, and part of that preservation includes providing some interim financing and repair assistance support to these 5 to 49 unit buildings. And I'm sure Stacy has a kind of broader response on the preservation question.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. And I agree, preservation is really the critical issue right now, based on the market conditions that I laid out. Really, because the district has invested so much in affordable housing stock, we need to take a look at the age of those investments, and there are a lot of properties that are coming out of their either initial or extended use restrictions that might be at risk for various reasons. And in sort of an ideal market, a owner would be able to essentially at the end of that compliance or affordability period be able to reinvest capital by either refinancing existing mortgages or resyndicating their properties and pull additional capital in to make needed upgrades to sort of wholesale systems in buildings. We're not in that position today. There is no equity in many properties to be able to pull in that type of capital. So there's sort of a mismatch in the need and the availability of resources. So I definitely think that this is something we need to focus on. It's really an urgent need. And I would say one of the things that I think would be really helpful is to really, from a portfolio perspective of DHCD's portfolio, the housing finance aging portfolios, to really like assess exactly what that need is so we can match the type of capital that's needed to meet the demand.
Do you have thoughts on how we might be able to find or leverage that capital? Because it's not a small amount of money.
It's not.
Any thoughts on tools we need that we don't have?
That is a great question. I think Steve talked about sort of the interim financing. Really what we need is a longer term capital. I am sort of putting my thinking cap on as to sort of how we could develop a sort of a longer term type of pool of funding that might combine some low cost sort of capital from the private sector with public funds to write down the cost of that capital. But this is not sort of like 5-year type of funding. This would be longer term that's needed. So I think it's really sort of trying to pool in sort of the private with the public capital to look at longer term type of gap financing together.
And I would just add real quickly, inhibiting any tool that we may come up with are still some of our post-pandemic issues like rent arrears. Buildings or funds that can't perform is really going to constrict the inflow of capital, period. So I think the work that the council and the mayor and the community have done around addressing the courts issues, the rent arrears issues, is kind of it is the seeding that needs to happen before we can actually come up with a tool or instruments that are actually going to attract private capital. We got to fix some of our systemic post-pandemic issues that are still nagging at us. Once we do that, I think that private investors are generally looking for ways to make money, and so therefore funds that will perform. But until we can kind of bring some performance health back to the footprint of buildings in the portfolio, it's going to be challenging.
Um, for one of the other issues that is complex, in addition to preservation, that I believe we have to wrap our heads around pretty quickly, is the cost of building affordable housing, which is, I'm glad, become a national conversation. From your experiences, what are the biggest drivers of per unit costs for affordable housing?
There are so many of them. And from my perspective, I feel like a per unit cost is a challenging way to measure the cost, because again, some of the policy goals that we have sort of drive up a per unit cost. When you build 3-bedroom apartments on a it's sort of more expensive than building 1s and 2s. But one of the main drivers is the fact that the sort of scale that we're able to build on with the tools and resources that we have is that sort of the projects that we produce are small. So by nature, they're less efficient. It's less efficient to build a 50-unit property or a 100-unit property than it is to build 300 to 400 units. So just by nature, having small projects are more costly than larger projects, if that resonates.
Yeah, and I this is not an answer, but this is a forecast. Maya Brennan on our team, who I know you've met with, is working with DCHFA, some other housing experts in a cost drivers working group. And so they are doing a full examination of the things that are driving up costs. As that work progresses, Mr. Chairman, I know it was that working group's intent to share it with you and other members of the council. So I will check in on the status of that effort, and when there are definitive findings to share, we'll make sure that we get that to you.
I appreciate it, and I look forward to that. So some cities and states set thresholds to control spending, so like a per unit cost cap. Do you believe that's something that the district should be looking at?
I believe DC already has that. Yeah.
That cap must be high because
No one has ever run up onto it, right?
I mean, what we pay per unit for affordable housing is pretty high. Okay. Beyond unit counts, what should the Housing Production Trust Fund be prioritizing?
I think if we look over the last, I don't know, 5 to 7 years, maybe longer, the trust fund has seemed to work best when it is allowed to respond to the moment that the city is in. So what I mean by that is there have been some funding rounds that have been all preservation, because that was what the need was determined. There have been others shortly following that were all new production because of the mayor's production goals at that time. I think what makes the fund effective is its flexible use. There's 7 eligible areas that include pre-development, acquisition, gap finance. I can never remember all 7 at once, and I think, I think what ultimately makes the fund is effective, and this work most effectively is if that we can just continue, and this is one of our hopes with the Housing Production Advisory Board, to really create a culture of kind of codependence of stakeholders and interests, so that literally every funding round, we are responding to what practitioners and developers and community leaders are saying the needs of that moment is. What makes the fund so great is its flexibility. If we're not using it flexibly, then we're not maximizing its potential. I know that seemed like an evasive answer.
It was, but and so let me say more. Um, a reasonable person would look at DC and say, you all have invested well over $1 billion in housing, and we don't feel any impact whatsoever. It is just way too expensive to live here. And so I believe that we've got to get more disciplined in what we're measuring. Um, it can't just be how much do we spend, because spending money is not the goal.
Mhm.
Affordability, keeping people in DC is the goal. But we're not meeting that goal because it's not an affordable city and people are being priced out every day. So I want us to be more disciplined in setting what that goal is. And you know, the other thing I worry about a lot is there often seems to be competition between the number of units and the number of bedrooms. And, if we build a bunch of one units and studios, then when those folks want to have families, they move to the suburbs, to Maryland and Virginia, which hurts us down the line. So, um, I want to make sure the city can articulate where are we going and what does success look like, so we know whether we're on our way to success. And so that's why I asked that question.
I don't think this is, and I know that you and I have had this conversation before, and I don't want to invoke it now, but I want to footnote it. I think that sometimes we're asking the wrong questions, and that's why we're not getting to the right answers. Um, Based on our market, if we were going to evaluate the effectiveness of the fund should probably be $500 million a year. To put the burdens of this market on $100 million annually, I'm not sure that that's great calculus. But it is the conversations that we have to have. We have to be the most efficient. But I think there's some other questions that are not being asked around how do we structurally put in play the things that we need to ensure that we have the District of Columbia that we want, that is diverse, that may be somewhat sculpted from the current pursuits that we have. And that is a really political statement, and it is a really diplomatic one. But I do think, and I care less about what the questions are. I care more that we are maybe asking those questions transparently. And you and I have had this conversation, and I'm happy to make it an ongoing one.
Anything to add, Ms. Berenbach?
I mean, I think it's affordability is a housing issue, and there are other issues on affordability that are outside of the Housing Production Trust Fund. That there's a lot to put on a one program in terms of affordability. So, but clearly, the trust fund is targeted, and like Stephen said, the demand it just really outweighs the resources available to solve it.
I'm not leaving this conversation very optimistic. So we will talk more. The let me explain that response. So in government, very often agencies will say, well, we're not fully responsible for this, and no one owns it. Or we'll say this program can't respond to all these things, but we don't identify what things can. And so the problems perpetuate. because there's no driver. Nobody's saying, no, I'm responsible, and I'm going to figure it out. And so I do push folks in our committee to drive what you should be driving, and if you shouldn't be driving, tell me who should drive it. Because we have come to a time where we can't do what we've done for the past 30 years, which is next year throw more money at the problem and say, hey, look how much money we spent on it. You know, we can't do that anymore. The costs of running the city have now virtually exceeded the amount of money we bring in, and we bring in a lot of money. And so at this point, you know, I think it has to be more solutions and checking our work, refining, then hey, let's build and fund another program. And we've been blessed to be able to do that for a long time, but that time has run out. So there'll be more questions like that from the committee. On that point, I'm sure you both know last year the Department of Housing and Community Development returned $3.1 million of our in 9% LIHTC credits to the national pool. We have engaged DHCD on the matter numerous times, and as DHCD knows, I'm at this point unsatisfied with the explanations as to why this happened and what will prevent it from happening again. So we're overdue for a response to the letter I sent in December about this, and have been in communication at a hearing earlier this week with the director. Have you seen the return of this many credits in your career in other jurisdictions?
It is not really something that I've tracked specifically, no.
I have not of tax credits. I have seen other federal dollars returned with programs, but not specifically tax credits.
For the coalition, members of the coalition or enterprise, do you all use 9% tax credits for projects?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And my members do, other members do.
Um, uh, Stabilization, which I believe goes hand in hand with preservation. Would love to get your thoughts on what you think about using the trust fund for stabilization of at-risk affordable housing. That is to say, how do we best use, or do you have thoughts on how we best use trust fund dollars to infuse cash into affordable buildings that are at risk without creating a notion that the city, you know, can on an ongoing basis subsidize these buildings?
Well, so let me just be clear. This is Stacy Barenbach. This is not necessarily Enterprise. But I, you know, I would love to see that the Housing Production Trust Fund is supplemented to meet that need and that demand, whether it's through the fund or an additional type of stabilization fund. I hear you about new programs, but you know, it is a need that we need to really meet the demand. So whether the trust fund can continue to produce housing and work sort of the way that it has been without sort of dedicating resources to stabilization. Like in my ideal world, the trust fund does what it does and a stabilization fund would do what it does. Absent that type of dedicated resource, I think it is clearly a high need in the market. So I think it's critically important that we look at continuing support to stabilize properties that have already received district resources first to ensure that those investments actually can continue and viability to help with, because all of that sort of plays into, we do have private investors in those projects. So in order to return sort of the confidence in the market, we need something to keep those properties operating without risk of really the loss of the investment that was made by the district initially, and a pool of dedicated affordable housing.
Okay. Are you referencing non-payment of rent or something else or something additional?
Mhm.
So it's a big issue and it comes up a lot. And I think Mr. Glade mentioned sort of, return on investment, and it is important that people understand, like, y- usually with housing, it's an investment. When people invest, they expect a return on the investment. The non-payment of rent issue in DC affects that calculation. Um, um, So that's where my mind was going as you were speaking, but I may have been missing.
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
No, we are aligned.
I mean, one of the things to note from your question, Mr. Chairman, is over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been driven by different conditions. So one year, all the trust fund money went into preservation. Another year went into new construction. Last 2 cycles, I think it went into stabilization. It speaks to the need that we probably have needs across those funds on an annual basis, but we don't have the money to do it. So one year we're consciously, or we should be consciously knowing that we're letting new production suffer because we're doing preservation. Or not necessarily suffer, but stall a little bit or languish. And then the next year, it's different. The last 2 years, one thing that I would note about at least um, the deep subsidy affordable housing ecosystem is to go back, because we haven't recovered from it, but and we're not necessarily consciously raising it. But prior to the pandemic, as the trust fund was increasing from 100 to 250 million and ultimately 440 million during the pandemic, the industry was told to scale up. What they were told was, if we're going to keep putting more money in you, they went out, they bought buildings, they arranged financing, they dipped into reserve funds, and then the pandemic hit. Nobody's fault. But then you have this footprint of properties that are being held, that are that are hurting organizations because of carrying costs and so much more. That is part of what we're recovering from as well. And so I completely supported the last 2 trust fund rounds being used for stabilization. But now we have 2 cycles where no preservation, or well, that's a form of preservation, but no new housing development is done. Yes.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add, I think it's important to just keep in mind the stress that it creates to the organizations that are the sponsors that hold the housing, whether it's a tenant co-op, whether it's a small privately owned developer that has really put their entire business into the district, or a nonprofit organization. Somebody has to make sure that the debt on those properties are paid, that the units are maintained, and that we meet just everyday operating expenses. And when there's a deficit, or when the expenses outweigh the revenue, somebody has to come up with the money, and the strain that it puts on organizations can be dire, and put their organizational stability at risk. It's really, I think it's really something to keep in mind, that we've got all of these providers across the ecosystem that have really committed to affordable housing. And it's really something to look at as to whether or not these organizations and small businesses can be sustained without some additional support.
I appreciate you putting that on the record. I mean, it is important for folks to understand, policymakers to understand when the debt on the building can't get paid, you lose the building.
Yeah.
When there's not enough money coming in, you can't improve or maintain the building properly. And so it is a balance, and it's important that folks understand, as I usually say, both sides of the ledger.
Yeah. And one more thing, we are in recovery mode, and I believe we're going to recover. When we think we've gotten to that point, the one thing the district does not have, to my knowledge, I've Googled it a bunch of times and can't find it, and I think we desperately need, we don't have a comprehensive housing strategy for the city. We've had affordable housing strategies, we've had preservation strategies, we've had new production goals, we've had nationally leading investments, but it's not against a comprehensive strategy. And I think that that would be a worthy undertaking. I think we're capable of doing it, and I think it would create a framework and give us more predictability about investments, about turnover in properties, and so much more.
Um, Mr. Glaude, you're nominated as both a first-time member of the HPTF and for designation as chairperson. Hopefully you know this. How do you plan to balance the learning curve of joining the board with the responsibility of leading its work from day one?
I appreciate that question. I transparently am not the housing technical expert that the other appointees on the board. What I will say, in my 11 years at the coalition, I've learned a lot more than I know, a lot more than I came in the door knowing. The other thing that I would humbly offer, sometimes not having a total technical expert is a good added perspective for the board. Sometimes the remedial questions I have to ask us, actually end up getting us to examine things differently, or as I like to affectionately say, sometimes the stupid questions really take you to better places. And I am mindful of the fact that Stacy and her colleagues do this work at a really granular level every day. And I try to find, but as chair, I would envision my role to make sure that the advisory board is equipped with timely, accurate information, that it has an agenda that is actually useful, that we are meeting as scheduled and as mandated, and that we are taking on the burden of having ourselves actually seen as a resource, but also maintaining the accountability we have to the council, to DHCD, and the mayor.
Um, so you led the coalition for a number of years. What do you see as the biggest disconnect or disconnects between um, how HPTF works now and the need of um, particularly affordable housing developers?
I think we need to sit down more. We've reinstituted our quarterly meetings with DHCD so that our practitioners can have learned kind of up to the minute what the agency is thinking and vice versa. I said it a few moments ago about this culture of dependence that 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 I think just needs to continue to improve. I think the agency, I think the administration and the council um, should should embrace the interdependence that they have. I think that both should embrace the fact that the community is the delivery system, and meaning the community of practitioners and developers is the community system. And so I think that we need to kind of turn into the slide on that, sharing information better, being more transparent, being a little vulnerable in our decision making. Like, those are some of the elements I hope that the advisory board can bring to the deliberations of the agency, the mayor, and the council.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope and expect that you will bring your perspectives and experiences. You've worked inside DHCD, Ms. Behrenbeck, Mr. Glaude. You work with nonprofit developers every day. The city is best served if you are bringing that experience to these boards, challenging things. Appropriately, you got to work with folks, but we have to push each other. And so, my expectation is that you're going to bring those experiences and critiques, but for the right reason, to this work, so that we continue to improve, because we've got some tough waters ahead of us, and we've got to navigate them. So I'm glad to see folks of your caliber nominated to the board, and look forward to moving your confirmations forward. So thank you very much
Thank
for
you so
being
much,
with us.
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to now invite up Heather Wellington and Johannes Fuller, who are renominated to the DC Housing Finance Agency. And thank you. And I am going to swear you both in before you testify. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the Committee on Housing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you very much. And you can begin your testimony when you're ready, Ms. Wellington.
Good morning, Chairperson White and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is Heather Wellington, and I'm honored to receive your consideration for my nomination and reappointment to the Board of Directors of the District of Columbia Housing Finance Agency. I am deeply grateful to Mayor Muriel E. Bowser for her confidence in my leadership and nominating me for the reappointment to continue serving the residents of the district. As the current board chair, I want to acknowledge the exceptional, mission-driven staff of DCHFA. These are challenging times for the industry. Rising construction costs, high interest rates, post-pandemic economic pressures continue to strain affordable housing development. Yet DCHFA has remained steady in its commitment to preserving and producing housing across all 8 wards, ensuring that residents have access to safe, stable, and affordable homes. I am a resident of Ward 5 in Washington, D.C., and an institutional commercial real estate professional with more than 20 years of experience in Washington, D.C. and markets nationwide. In my career as a commercial real estate professional, I have overseen all aspects of the development process, including acquisition, entitlement, design, and construction management for mixed-use, residential, office, retail, and hotel projects in urban environments. This includes the acquisition and development of federal, state, and local government assets and specialized mission-critical assets for private institutions, constituting more than 3 million square feet of space and totaling more than $900 million in investment overall. Today, I am the founder and principal of Cube Development and Consulting, a boutique commercial real estate firm specializing in development execution, strategic consulting, federal government project management, third-party development, committed to delivering high-impact projects that expand access to affordable housing, strengthen community infrastructure, and translate complex public sector objectives into successful, market-ready developments that serve the needs of those in the district and nationally. My passion for this work is deeply personal. I grew up in affordable rental housing with my mother and grandmother in New York City and Boston. I've lived in the DC region for more than 20 years and have seen firsthand how rising costs have displaced families and destabilized communities. I know the transformative power of affordable housing, and that experience continues to guide my leadership as chair. During my tenure on the board, I have brought the perspective of a practitioner who has sat on both sides of the table, acquiring, financing, entitling, and delivering complex mixed-use developments on behalf of diverse stakeholders. I have led entitlement efforts for more than 2 million square feet of projects and have extensive experience navigating zoning, PUD approvals, and interagency coordination. This expertise strengthens the board's ability to evaluate financing tools, enhance our underwriting standards, manage risk, and support innovative development strategies. As we look ahead, I remain committed to working with Mayor Bowser, the council, our agency partners, and the development community to expand homeownership opportunities, preserve existing affordable housing, and advance new production that reflects the needs of district residents. Thank you, Chairperson White, for the opportunity to testify before the committee. This concludes my testimony. I would be happy to respond to questions from you and the members of the committee.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fuller.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman White and members of the Housing Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is Johannes Fuller, and I am honored to be here as the mayor's nominee for reappointment to the Board of Directors of the District of Columbia Housing Finance Agency, DCHFA, for a new full term. I want to express my sincere appreciation to Mayor Muriel Bowser for her continued confidence. And I also want to thank you and your colleagues for your leadership and commitment to housing affordability and stability in the district. I am seeking reappointment because I believe deeply in the mission of DCHFA and the essential role the agency plays in the district's affordable housing ecosystem. DCHFA operates at the intersection of public purpose and private capital, expanding access to affordable home ownership, supporting the financing of affordable rental housing, and helping ensure that Washington, D.C. remains a place where residents of all income levels can build stable lives. I also want to acknowledge the outstanding professionalism and mission-driven commitment of DCHFA's senior team and the staff that supports them. Their work reflects a high standard of technical expertise, operational discipline, and integrity, and it is a credit to the agency and to the district. My career has been grounded in affordable housing finance, real estate development, and public sector leadership, and each part of that experience has strengthened my ability to serve effectively as board member and as a vice chair. I've spent years underwriting and structuring housing transactions, managing delivery in complex public environments, and leading development and asset management work focused on execution, performance, and long-term value. Today, as managing principal of Adinkra Solutions Incorporated, I support public sector leaders, universities, and mission-driven organizations on major capital initiatives and redevelopment efforts. And I also lead multifamily investment and asset management work. That perspective keeps me grounded in current market realities and helps me contribute meaningfully to the board's decisions. As vice chair, I approach this work through the lens of fiduciary responsibility, governance, and accountability. The board must ensure that DCHFA remains financially sound, well-governed, and able to deliver on its mission through changing economic cycles. DCHFA's credibility with investors, lending partners, and the bond market matters because it directly affects the agency's ability to support residents and projects over the long term. This is also a challenging time to advance housing projects in Washington, D.C. Construction costs remain high, interest rates have changed the feasibility of many deals, and funding gaps are widening even for strong projects. In this environment, DCHFA's role is more important than ever. The agency helps stabilize transactions, bridge gaps, unlock development, and sustain affordability while maintaining the discipline needed to serve the district for years to come. If confirmed, I would be honored to continue supporting DCHFA's mission and working with my colleagues to strengthen the agency's impact, integrity, and long-term capacity to deliver results to district residents. Thank you again for your time and consideration. I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you both for being here, being with us. Probably mentioned this at your initial confirmation, but Mr. Fuller was essentially chief deputy at DGS when I had oversight, and appreciated your responsiveness, professionalism across that term. So I come into this with a high level of respect. Ms. Wellington, since your confirmation, I found you engaged and was excited to see you join the board. So I appreciate the work that you all have done. One of the things I hear from the housing industry is that they appreciate DCHFA's rigor and overall management of administering the 4% LIHTC program. I don't understand, though, why you all administer the 4% LIHTC program but not the 9%. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I am not certain. I am aware that we do administer the 4% low-income housing tax credit projects. I do not know the history, however, for the connection between 4% and 9% and DCHFA's involvement.
And I would just add to that, I agree. I know it's something that, it's nuanced. People have been looking at ways we can continue to be creative and flexible and serve the residents. So I believe it's something that's on the table that has been questioned.
Okay. We'll keep questioning it, but not for a lot longer. We're going to do something. I try to be transparent in the hearings and make sure folks know where I'm coming from. Something I've asked agencies about a lot over the years, including DCHFA, given the current affordable, the amount of displacement and the articulated focus on Black home ownership in the district. Most often when I ask what DCHFA is doing to increase or promote Black home ownership, the response I get is about general programs that are not specifically designed to increase Black home ownership. They may or may not do that. Um, do you have thoughts on a special purpose credit program or other race conscious tool that we should be looking at specifically to promote Black home ownership in DC?
So I don't have probably any preliminary thoughts on specific racially targeted programs. I do know that DCHFA does have a strong home ownership program through lending through mortgage-backed securities. If I remember correctly, DC Open Doors, I think they had somewhere in the neighborhood of about 44 loans totaling over $14 million. So it does signal that there is activity there. Probably needs to be a little bit more conversation and data to be brought in for us to kind of figure out how we can develop programs if we're looking for a specific subset of the population to participate in affordable home ownership opportunities.
I'm gonna let you off the hook if you want to be let off the hook. So here's why legally it can be difficult to figure out how to create a race conscious tool. And as I look at the data, programs like HPAP continue to the percentage of Black folks who use that program continues to decrease each year, and that concerns me. And so even if it is not a specific race conscious tool, I think we should look at the data and say what's happening here and what should we be doing differently. And I just want to make sure I continue to push on that as a Black native Washingtonian who's seen my family price out of the city in a city that, unlike most, is led by majority Black leadership. I think it is important that we look at these things and talk about these things. So I'll keep pushing. Last year, DC HFA launched a $10 million portfolio stabilization grant that offered a one-time infusion of up to $250,000 to help stabilize affordable housing projects. How does or should the board evaluate whether that program, the success of that program, whether it prevented displacement, improved property conditions, stabilized buildings? How does or should the board look at evaluating the success of that program?
So the board was integral in the decision for that program and making sure it was rolled out. I don't need to make you aware, but we saw dire conditions with our portfolio and just district-wide on just post-pandemic policies that were once well-intentioned, but leading to, rental arrearages. We know the court system. So it's an ecosystem. There's not one thing that is an issue. And as we strive to maintain affordable housing and production, we knew that we had to stabilize and put an influx of money because, one, we don't want affordable housing covenants to go away. We put a lot of money, as you said, we don't want it to be wasted if they expire and other market rate come in, they buy them, it's no longer existing. So as we've put that cash out, we are now asking to, we look and we talk to our portfolio. They are required to be audited. They're required to have checks and balances as far as what was done with the money. What is your rental arrearage now? What is your occupancy rate? So we are making sure we check in with the sponsors or the developers in our portfolio. Where was your debt service before? How is it after? And how can we attribute that to that? And what experiences are you continuing to go through after this? So there's check-ins, there's making sure we are a partner in the system and having these conversations early so that we can see the effectiveness of this program and if it's something that will continue, because I do want to state money is important. Supporting and stabilizing is important, but it's an ecosystem. And if you can't fix one thing without fixing the other. So we have to make sure we continue to look at systemically what is causing this problem, as opposed to continuing to put money out there to balance the operating budgets and making sure that, they can pay the mortgage and they can do the CapEx programs. Those are important, but why are we getting there in the first place if the rent cannot be paid and the court systems cannot process?
Yeah. So one of the things I struggle about there is I agree with you very much, and we have we hear consistently about what is a very real issue: non-payment of rent. Like if rent doesn't get paid, then the mortgage for the building can't get paid. It can't be maintained. That's on the tenant side, but when we blow millions of dollars, which is leveraged into tens of millions of dollars on LIHTC, nobody wants to come to this table and talk about it. And so I think we've got to look at all aspects. You know, we can be critical of residents not paying rent or the council for passing these things, but I just don't see the consistent accountability is important, has to be across the board. Um, and I'm concerned that I hear about some of these issues, but the ones that are politically more challenging, we don't hear anything about. And we've got to address all sides of it. You know, we've moved this committee and me have moved some difficult legislation through on ERAP reform, on the Rental Act, but I have a real hard time getting support for like how do we fix the LIHTC program, or things of that nature. And so um, I want to I want to speak to these things because we've got to address them at this point.
I welcome the ability to participate in any roundtables to further the discussion.
I appreciate it. I mean, we will need this expertise. It's just like none of us individually have the answer, and so like if we can't come together and you know have the honest conversations, address challenges and concerns, then we're just gonna go in circles and a lot of finger pointing. And I know you all as professionals, it's not what you're interested in. You're interested in progress, as am I. So I appreciate your willingness to participate, and we will move those forward. Miss Wellington, how long have you been chair?
I stepped in as chair, I believe, in 2Q of last year after the passing of our former chair, Mr. Green, and I was recently elected chair for this year again at our last board meeting.
Um, do you have any particular goals for your current / next term as chair?
I do, and I think at this point I probably sound like a broken record, but we to the agency we are in trying times. We are going to continue to be in trying times for the next year or two, you know, if we're lucky, if not more. And I am very focused on us being a partner that is helpful and not making it more difficult for anyone to do business in the district. We already have a mass exodus of whether it's the capital markets or individuals that can't afford to remain here for XYZ reason. And I want to make sure, one, everyone knows who we are. Everyone knows the programs that we have and that our programs are meeting the needs of the residents, the missing middle, the individuals that, you know, first-time home buyers, I think they got it. But there's, you know, there are more people that want to stay in the district. So making sure that we, for whatever level it is, whoever we're doing business with, our sister agencies, the council, the mayor, that we are not making anything more difficult and that we are figuring out how to get to yes. Policies are great, processes are great, but they're even better when they work towards getting to a yes for our common goal.
I appreciate that. I one of the things I think we really need to do is uh, be innovative, and that's something I appreciate about DCHFA. You know, I do see innovation, and you know sometimes I'll push on an issue and say, well, can't you do something there? You know, but I do see innovation come out of the agency, including this portfolio stabilization grant. So I appreciate that. One of the recurring concerns, and it's come up in the news again, it kind of happens every couple of years. Recent reporting has highlighted and raised concerns about um, politically connected developers receiving uh, money who are also board members. Um, what is how does the board ensure that board members are properly recusing themselves from votes or deals where they have conflicts of interest? And what's your message to the public who's reading these articles and wondering, you know, what's going on? Is there something wrong going on?
Yeah, I think transparency is important. I can tell you in the short time that I've served on the board, anytime there has been a conflict of interest, folks have properly recused themselves. We also have a very strong ethics attorney and general counsel who are making sure that we're adhering to the rules, regulations, and laws that need to be governed. But I think also, you know, transparency is always going to be key. You know, I have had the benefit of reviewing deals that have been, you know, reviewed by staff. I think they do an excellent job in underwriting it. And I always try to look at the projects and opportunities from the multiple perspectives that I have. But we always want to lead with integrity, and that's absolutely what I've seen with DCHFA since I've served on the board.
Just to be transparent on my end, because I think that's an important word here. There are a lot of reasons why we should not have developers on this board, but the hurdle we run into is you do need people with expertise, and so otherwise, the board, the agency is not going to be effective. And so I want to articulate for the public why I confirm people who are, housing developers to this board. It is because you can't operate a board like this without expertise, and the people with expertise are generally have expertise because they're in the industry. So, I want to make sure we build and maintain the confidence of the public, and so I do very much get why it raises concerns when we see news and articles like this, and I think it's important in confirmation, especially reconfirmation hearings, to talk about this issue. Are there any safeguards you think we need to strengthen, Ms. Wellington?
Charge that we need to strengthen at the agency.
Such as like recusal procedures. This is with regard to concerns about people, members of the board, also applying for funding.
Thank you for clarifying. I was going to go to wire fraud and, text messages and clicking PayPal links. No, I would like to just reiterate, I think that our process is clear. Naturally, if you are not involved in the day of something, you will have questions, you will make assumptions, you will push back. And so that's another reason for transparency. We have an ethics process. We participate in the districts as well as ours. We have counsel that advises us on every situation. We recuse. I think we overabundantly recuse because we want to know that the public to know that perception is important. Sometimes there's no there, but we have to be practicing. We are a very active board that has a mission that is critical to DC, and the best way to understand that underwriting and work with staff is because we're practitioners. So I believe our system works. I believe that when there's questions about it, we are responsive and we participate in any processes that are required from the district.
Thank you. Mr. Fuller, at your previous confirmation hearing, you said that your goal for the board was to ensure that affordable housing projects stay on track for completion. What steps have you taken to assess or improve project timelines?
Thank you for that question. So, those who participate in the board with me know that I always come to these board meetings prepared. I think the DCHFA senior staff and supporting staff do a great job of providing that material in ample time for us to do that. And as I had mentioned in my previous response, I oftentimes try to put on the hats of the different perspectives that I've served in my capacity. So that of a banker, that of a housing provider, that of a public official, and making sure that I am asking those questions from those perspectives to ensure that we are moving towards project completion. And, I can thankfully say that, the team and the staff, in addition to the board, have vetted and asked the right questions to make sure that we are looking at these deals the right way and advancing deals that make sense and add to the either add or preserve to the housing stock here in the District of Columbia.
Thank you. And what's your primary goal or goals for the upcoming term?
So for me, it's really focused on fiduciary oversight and governance. I want to make sure that we continue to assess these deals from a risk perspective. As mentioned, we do have a responsibility to the residents of DC, but we also have to recognize that the capital markets also rely on DCHFA. So looking at opportunities and programs and projects from an underwriting and risk perspective, making sure that we're properly governing the board to advance these, to address any issues around conflict. I think that confidence is going to be helpful in terms of advancing projects.
Sure. Those are all the questions I have. Want to thank you both for your work on the board, for being willing to continue to serve. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Our final witness today will be Talib Shakir, um, who was nominated as the Director of the Office of Returning Citizens Affairs. I'll welcome you to the witness table. I'm going to swear you in as our government witness. If you would raise your right hand, you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to provide to the Committee on Housing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you very much. If you would hit the button on your microphone, and
Yes.
thank you. You can begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson White and members of the committee. My name is Talib Shakir, and I'm honored to appear before you today as the mayor's nominee to serve as a director of the mayor's office of Return and Citizen Affairs. I'm grateful to Mayor Muriel E. Bowser for her confidence in me, and I appreciate the committee's thoughtful consideration of my nomination. I come before you with humility, clarity of purpose, and a deep respect for the responsibility entrusted in this role. Hear me? Right, okay. My personal and professional journey is grounded in both public service and direct community-based reentry work. My passion for this work began during a period of incarceration where I began to contribute to a reentry-focused program centered around restorative justice, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy. Throughout that time, I maintained strong ties with my family, friends, and the DC community that supported me as I navigated reentry. My presence before the committee is a full circle moment for me. While I was incarcerated, I saw the mayor, Muriel Bowser, then a candidate for mayor prior to her first term, speak in a television interview about how her vision for the District of Columbia and the pathway to the middle class. And I committed myself to joining this administration one day to lead programs for returning citizens like myself. Today, I get to share my experience and testify as to why I'm adequately and passionately led to the mayor's office of Return to Citizen Affairs. Early in my career, I worked as a peer navigator through the early development of Change Perceptions, a local nonprofit dedicated to providing comprehensive services to returning citizens. In this role, I supported participants through the Incarcerated Reentry and Reintegration Assistance, also known as IRA program. This work placed me directly along individuals navigating housing instability, employment barriers, and supervision requirements, along with family reunification. In 2019, I began working in the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services, otherwise known as MOCRS, as the Ward 6 liaison, where I help residents navigate city services and represented mayoral initiatives at community and civic meetings. Later, I was promoted to serve as the MOCRS Director of Operation, where I oversaw the day-to-day operation of the 19-person MOCRA team, including customer relation management and managing intergovernmental and community partnership. I most recently served as a deputy director at MOCRS, where I oversaw cross-functional teams operating across all 8 wards, managing complex interagency initiatives, and support executive leadership and implement mayor priorities related to crisis response, constituent engagement, and community coordination. This role required disciplined operational leadership, accountability to the public, and sustained collaboration across district agencies and community stakeholders. Another one of my core responsibilities was to manage a safe commercial corridor hub in Chinatown and Anacostia. In this position, I ensured that our partner agencies such as DBS, DHS, OTA, and several MOCA offices worked in a coordinated manner to bring wraparound city services to members of the Chinatown and Anacostia communities. In addition, I oversaw the MOCA's business liaison and the faith liaison who managed partnerships across the district and ensured that all registered places of worship and businesses had access to government resources. In addition to my work in the district, I've had the opportunity to develop and maintain relationship with reentry practitioners and organizations across the United States, advising them on developing strategies to strengthen the national reentry programming. Through this work, I have contributed key insights into daily program development and peer-led service models and systems coordinating efforts supporting both adult and juvenile impacted youth. I currently serve on the board of directors of Change and Impact, A change of perception, organization dedicated to serving returning citizen adults. And I'm also the chair of Young Minds Incorporated, a nonprofit organized on just impacting young people. These roles reinforce my understanding of governance, fiduciary responsibilities, and the importance of mission-driven leadership. As I stated earlier in my testimony, my personal and professional development makes me a suited candidate to lead MORCA. As we run through the tape, as we all know, MORCA occupies a unique critical role within district government. It functions as an advocate for returning citizens, shapes policy and programs to coordinate access across agencies, serves as a trusted partner and community organization, and as a steward of public accountability. In my lived experience, professional background, and leadership qualities have given me a clear understanding of the complexities of reentry, including the gaps that can exist between policy intent and lived reality. I understand how critical it is for local work to be credible, coordinated, and results driven, especially for residents who have historically experienced fragmented systems and limited access to opportunity. If confirmed, my focus will be on strengthening Mocha's operational clarity and internal structure, deepening agencies and community partnership, ensuring measurable outcomes and transparent reporting, and elevating the voices and experience of returning sentences and policy development. I will do this by continuing to strengthen Mocha's relationship with existing government agencies and community partners, by sourcing and maintaining quantitative data that highlights specific gaps affecting the returning citizen community, by continually working with alongside our agency counterparts such as the Bureau of Prison and Volunteers of America to ensure that returning citizens are fully aware of services and resources provided by the MOCA office. That assistance in the transition from incarceration to integration within the various communities in the District of Columbia. I believe MOCA must be strategic and grounded by balancing executive oversight with real community impact. Before end of the day, I would like to give a shout out and thanks to the team at MOCA, a wonderful team, who are passionate public servants committed to making a difference in our city, and to the hundreds of second chance employees who work in nearly every agency across district government. I thank you for being an example of what Mayor Bowser means when it says we talk about second chances and a fair shot for all Washingtonians. And thank you, Mr. Chairman White, for the opportunity to testify, and I will be pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. So one one thing that's important to start with, there are some folks inside, but mostly outside of the district, who suggest that people who have been convicted of serious crimes should not be able to serve in certain capacities in government. Um, what's your perspective on this?
Um, that's a good question. Perceptions about what that looks like. I don't think that that necessarily discredits someone' ability to serve a population or community they're very familiar with. I also know that there's no other city like in America, like the District of Columbia, that allows people who have had those offenses to serve in that capacity. So that's what I feel about. I don't feel that I feel that as we talk about reentry and returning citizens, that at some point we have to move past being returning citizens to become regular citizens, people who are productive, people who contribute to society and the communities which they serve.
I appreciate that. Um, uh, do you think anybody should be evaluated solely on their worst mistakes, whether they're a returning citizen or not?
I don't think just because for the sake of. I definitely think that your work proves itself. If you're a leader in the community, people notice your leadership ability and qualifications if you are doing the work. So I don't think just by proxy that hey you get that right. But I definitely think that if you have proven yourself, if you have done the work and it's sustained, um, that you should have the ability to serve in those capacities.
And do you think that returning citizens have done and are doing important work in our city?
I do. I do. I do. I think this city is very unique in terms of culture, in terms of community, in terms of landscape, and in terms of uh, some of the systemic issues that this city went through in the late 80s and early 90s. that the returning citizen population, they're pillars in those long-term DC communities.
Um, the DC Code, Section 24-1302, requires the director to coordinate and monitor service delivery and identify areas for service improvement. What is one goal you plan to achieve in your first 6 months as director to improve services or delivery of services to returning citizens?
That's a good question. I'm a data-driven guy. I like numbers. I like to see where the numbers are at. And I think that in this role, it's critical and it's crucial that we have numbers that support and to support the guidance and where we send people from this population, so that we're not doing duplicative work. So my first 6 months is definitely dedicated and committed on looking at the KPIs. What are the goals we've set for ourselves as an agency, as an office? What are these numbers saying? Like, and then from that, having a strategic plan to say, based upon these numbers, based upon this data, in comparison to nationwide stats and data, right? That here's a way that this office should be moving or developing itself in this way.
Uh, I think you will find yourself very much at home in this committee. I believe the same thing. We got to look at the data. We got to hold ourselves accountable. We got to ask, what are we doing well? What should we do better? So I'm glad to hear that. And I hope you maintain that enthusiasm for data when we get to our oversight hearings. But no, I'm excited to hear that. I really do think it's important. And I think it's important that we be able to say, yeah, this is the thing we're doing really well. The data show it. This is a place we need to improve. Here's what we need to improve it. That way you keep moving forward. Um, I know you've been in the role. About how long have you been acting on the role?
Approximately 40 days.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, what performance metrics does the office currently track to gauge its effectiveness?
Um, so right now, we are in a development stage of categorizing that data, that information, and strategizing where it go. Right now, we rely on our intake, how many people come through, how many people reappear. We also rely on how many people are being served to completion. And we generally hear that people have been coming back to the office saying, hey, I started here, and I've got a job, or I've gotten this training. And so it's a lot of comparative information that we're using to track that. However, I want us to have a more integrated focus system, so it becomes easier to track and to mainstream.
Um, keep us posted on how we can support that. The way I view oversight that's relevant here, um, I'm not I'm not I'm not particularly critical if you track data and the data show something's not going well. That to me is a good thing. I think a lot of times people worry about saying, oh, this thing isn't going well. If you know it's not going well and you've identified, I think that's a good thing. If you set an ambitious goal and you hold yourself accountable, you try to achieve it, and the agency falls short, that's okay too, if you're learning from it. But I do think it's important to set goals, to track the data. Where I run into issues with directors sometimes is if stuff ain't going well and they're telling me it is, and I ask how they know, and they say, "Well, I got a feeling," then we we end up it gets messy. But I like the way you're looking at things, and when agencies aren't able to meet the goals, that's when you say to the council or to the committee, here's what else we need. Because my job is to support our agencies in being successful. I want to see all the agencies under our purview be successful. So I suspect and hope you will feel like you receive support from the committee. Um, how are you going to ensure the uh, consistent data collection?
Right. So what I've already begin doing independently is looking at what we have, what the metrics are showing, looking at trends, looking at patterns, and matching that with resources that we currently have, which they seem to be balancing out at this point now. And so for me, I can't overestimate how important that is. Just for me, just that's the way that I learn, that's the way that I grow, that's the way that I kind of implement. And so having that daily consistency that, of looking at metrics, looking at data, comparing it, is how I keep myself accountable to the needs and the goals of the office. It's not just, oh, I feel today, I feel like that. Like, no, like today, here's our mission is focused this way. And 90 days from now, we can say, okay, do we need to pivot or do we need to send our clients, through another service? And that's one of the things that I want. In this, as we talk about return to citizen reentry, it would be amiss to not talk about systems as we talk about the myriad and the various issues that returning citizens face. When we talk about housing, when we talk about employment, right? That there's a larger population that are also within this matrix of systems, and what that looks like. And so I, my my goal, the idea for this office is for not us to be like in a silo of issues that are systemically affecting other people, but to be more inclusive in those larger conversations, those broader conversations, right? To increase accessibility for our smaller population in comparison to the other communities that are also having issues with employment and housing and homelessness and Medicare, Medicaid.
That's a good point, and to that point, the agency is very, and the previous director and I had a number of conversations about this. A fair point. It's a basically a service delivery agency, and and so when you're trying to do all the right things and create the programs, help the people, sometimes it can be a challenge to collect and analyze the data. I just encourage you to make sure you got somebody on your team, whose job it is to help with that aspect.
Hmm.
There's a guy who's a returning citizen who testifies before this committee a bit, and I know he focuses a lot on data. I don't know if he's looking to come to Morca, but you might want to persuade him. Um, um, and yeah, I like the direction. Um, my hope is that for our performance oversight hearing, we will have some specific conversations
Hmm.
about data, um, where things are and where things go, and what the data looks like today is not as important as do we have the data we need, and what are the goals we're setting for the
Hmm.
future.
Hmm.
Um, as an advocate for returning citizens and the mayor's principal advisor on um, reintegration, what existing MORCA programs do you believe present the greatest opportunity to advance this community?
Um, Currently, what I've seen from this office thus far, that's been a little somewhat impressive, is one, the credibility that it has with inside of the end of the returning citizen population and community. Um, and the resources, the availability of the resources that's been provided, in terms of transportation access, in terms of getting people connected with Medicare, Medicaid, those type of resources seem to be fundamentally working. So, and even smaller, independent life skill classes that people come and attend to, like type and resume writing, that we do have a large presence of people who come down here for that. Another thing is that which can sometimes be a barrier and a challenge is the way that the office is working with Volunteers of America, the halfway house in Baltimore, to ensure that those DC residents who are housed at the halfway house have access and have time to come into the district. And most of the time they come to us first because there's a time limit on how long they can be out. and the access that those needs for vital documents, vital records. So those things seem to be working pretty well right now, as I see it. Mhm.
Do you have a sense of the timeline on the halfway house uh, in DC?
Uh, I don't have a direct sense of when that. I believe early February maybe, but I'm not sure exactly. But I do believe that there's an upcoming timeline for that.
It's a timeline is like years ago.
Right.
And then they said the new one, most recent one was December. I don't know what the new.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't been around that long yet.
Yeah, I'm very frustrated with this. The core DC, if you are watching, please, please, we need our halfway house. Um, it's relevant to something you mentioned not long ago. You know, we are going to need to continue to improve partnerships and innovation given the budget constraints of the city. Um, that's less a question than a statement. Yeah, I think you said as much in your previous response. Um, how do you expect to maintain and even elevate the reputation of the office that you just mentioned?
Um, um, I believe there's a certain amount of credibility that comes. That I have. Uh, there's a certain amount of networking opportunities that I have that may be non-traditional in the way that we service our returning citizen population, whether it be in the tech industry, the financial industry, uh, industries that have been proven to be successful. And so I do have a vision of reframing the way that we traditionally serve the returning citizen population. So that's kind of the mindset
Mhm.
that we have. Uh, and in that office, so it's with that credibility and maintaining that and really looking at different ways to be innovative as to like who can be potential partners with us without we're not trying to strain any budget restraints, anything like that, but people who are willing to be partners
Uh-huh.
with us and really thinking big about that, right? As we know, we just got Google Store, right? uh have a conversation with them, about, access, resources, maybe training programs that may be non-traditional in the way it's been in the past, where everybody don't want to be a construction worker, everybody don't want to work for DPW, right?
Sure.
And so we have to think about those returning citizens who come to us. We have to be able to say, hey, we have a variety of avenues of service for you in case that's not your traditional way of re-enter. Look at me, right? I'm sitting here now, right? I mean, so that just kind of proves the point. I probably wouldn't be good on the back of a dump truck, right? And if I had to go to an agency that could not provide me the resources or the avenues to steer me in where I'm best suited, where I'm stronger at, right? This also plays a role in why the recidivism rates are high. We're using the same metrics, we're using the same programs, we're using the same channels, right? And it's creating a bottleneck in these systems, and people can't get pushed through. So we got to look for other avenues that may be non-traditional, and we have to compare that across nationwide. There's 2.3 million people locked up. That's just federal prison alone. We had to look at other states and like what's working and how is that working, and within the confines of our budget and what we have available and access to, is there opportunity to bring those resources, to have those conversations, amongst ourselves. That is kind of like a different way of scaling up, if I say it like that.
I mean, one of the opportunities for partnership or ideas is with the commission on reentry and returning citizens affairs. Um, how do you plan to address the relationship between Morca and the commission?
Exactly. I think I think having an advisory board is very important. Having that commission is very important for several reasons. As a matter of fact, that's been one of the that's probably if I had to think about all the things that keep me up at night, that is one of the things that I think about, right? Because I want people who have big ideas, who are creative, people who are forward thinking. I wouldn't want us like to recycle, the same thing, the same people. And so I began working on, reaching out to people who I know that have some influence, who have proven. And I say when I say proven, I'm using that proven beyond the 3-year recidivism mark that they like. It's kind of like they set this 3-year mark for us, right? So without fail, you can say that these people have gone beyond what has been expected of returning citizens.
Yeah.
And so who can I, bring on and who's going to add value to the conversation? And speaking with people, I'm speaking with them in that language, right? Like, how do you add value? How are you going to advise the office, and how can we take this advice, and how can it implement change or put us in in some form of direction?
Yeah.
So I think the relationship is very critical, it's crucial. And that's one of the things that I'm really, really trying to like, let's get this thing, because I feel with that in place, I think that the role it's a little smooth.
Yeah. I mean, it's important that we get there. I- the um, the commission supports your work. You support the commission's work. And I think if you can get the agency and the commission to a place where the commission feels like you support it, where you have uh, you're briefing them on the
Mhm.
work that you're doing, um, making sure that agencies respond to them when they reach out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see that being a very productive relationship. Are you committed to improving the relationship between the agency and the commission?
100%. One of the things that with my previous role in government, as a mocher, it's one of those jobs where you respond and attend to a myriad of issues across all 8 wards, but it also allows you to build relationship with people across city government and different agencies. And having that relationship, I think that's a benefit, of having somebody who is familiar with DC government and systems and operations, and having that type of connection and networking with people. I think that's essential for this office to have someone that say, hey, let's have this conversation. Or, we need to get more people involved from over here, and people know that this person is, yes, he's committed and he's consistent. He's reputable. So I think it only helps that. And so fostering that relationship with uh, the commission is important. Previous to leaving my last role with the mayor's office, the mayor's business liaison, which was known as the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs. Now that sat under my purview. They also had a commission, so I was also responsible with building that up, interfaith, with bringing different people to that commission, and also the what was known as the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture, which is now like the business liaison that sits under the old office that I left. They have a commission as well, the Nightlife Commission. So I'm very familiar with how critical and key those relationships are.
Good, good,
Hmm.
good. Yeah, I think that experience will be very useful here. What does success look like at the end of your first year as director of this agency?
Um, for me, I think is being able to. I think for me, being able to begin a project or goal that's going to service so many people, and using data to begin it, just and having just a basic outline of it, having data to begin it, and working through that, and then kind of see it come through fruition that way, right? Where it wasn't luck, it wasn't happenstance, it wasn't by some strange stroke of luck. But for me, success is we'll be able to push more people through employment, through ways that that are not traditional, but there's number to say that we need to invest more in this. We need to have more people going this way. We need more collaboratives this way. Uh, if we start talking about housing and then getting vouchers back into to MOCA, so that we can start providing vouchers to people, that would be a big win. But I think the biggest win for me, and this is just from personal experience, is to strengthen our connection with our mental health providers.
Yeah.
From personal experience, I've yeah, it's something that's very important, and it's something that I see more people struggle with not than not in terms of barriers to reentry. I know when people identify something, about what's the biggest barrier to reentry, people some say housing, some say Medicare, some say employment, some say this, but the biggest barrier is mental health issues, right? And the acknowledgement of what that looks like after spending so many years of incarceration and operating in this way, right? It's a sensory overload,
Yeah.
which can cause a nervous breakdown. And if we're not able to identify that, if we're not able to address that primarily,
Yeah.
right? What good is housing if you have people who are not mentally stable to reside in those housing? In my work in the community, I found that we've been good, and contrary to what some people may believe overall, right? Because we're dealing with like certain case studies, but I've seen people who were unhoused get housing without the mental health support and leave housing because they're not used to being in four walls, right? They're used to being nomadic. They're used to just having that's their mindset. And on the flip side, you say, oh, they don't want to be housed. It's not they don't want to be housed. They may not have the mental capacity for that. And there's so many people who are returning citizens, right, who fall into that category. But we focus on these kind of tangible things and we miss that. And as a result of that, we have returning citizens committing suicide, right? Whether it be suicide by self or by behavior.
Yeah.
And it's that is the real challenge. You know, I have a brother that did 30 years. He didn't last 14 months, right? And you would think that his brother works government, a strong support system, family system, right? All these systems in place. He didn't have to worry about housing.
Yeah.
None of these things, but he didn't have the mental capacity. And those of us who were able to recognize it and see it, he couldn't see it himself because he still had the systemic way of thinking of himself as being incarcerated,
Yeah.
right? So what happened? Suicide by behavior. Return back to old behaviors. And all the warning signs of it, hey, bruh, till somebody takes his life,
Yeah.
right? So these are the really big issues when we start talking. This is why I say we can talk about returning citizens and we can talk about reentry. They seem the same, but they have they diverge in so many different ways, right? So generally, yeah, reentry and people have support, right? But how do we get people to see themselves beyond returning citizens, which means living wholesome lives, right? Healthy lives, which includes mental health access, right? Which means access to food, right? Access to healthcare, access to the same thing that we ask other people to have access to for them to be healthy.
Yeah.
So for me, that is something that is heavy for me, right? Mental health. And we see so many people come in our offices, right? And it's not that they don't want the service, right? It's not they don't trust us. It's just sometimes they're just in crisis.
Um, I'm, I think you're touching on something really important. You know, there have to be ways that we can address that aspect better. I look forward to hearing the ideas that you bring forward to address that, and I look forward to supporting them. So it really is important. You can give people a home, every program in the world, but if there are mental health issues going on and you don't address those, none of the other stuff matters. So.
No,
Um,
it is definitely the foundation.
well, I'm excited to see that work continue to unfold, and I'm very sorry to hear about your brother. Um, the council, the city relies on Morca to advise on issues that particularly impact the returning citizen community. And unfortunately, Morka did not attend the hearing I held on Tuesday about the Project Homecoming Amendment Act. I was disappointed. I want to be candid. This bill directs Morka to run a community reunification and support program, and we know housing support is a very important concern for folks who return home. Do you have thoughts on that bill that you can share for the record?
Yeah, I definitely think it's the bill is essential. It's definitely one that provides a lot of support for for the returning citizen population. However, with understanding how the capacity of MOGA and as more of a referral based uh, office or agency, and knowing what that type of oversight would look like, what type of staffing that would look like. Uh, there are some concerns with capacity, and there are some concerns with there are other agencies within inside of DC government who we are also referring people to. That they should be the appropriate agencies to take that lead, and have that take that lead with the advice of this office, with the assistance of this office. But I think that oversight is probably a bit much. The $1,500, the lease and the lease up, right? Just all of those different dynamics may be a little bit. It would be a challenge for our office to hold up, and so we support the bill. We looked at it, we read it up and down. I know there was another clause that the advisory that the commission had a little bit of executive oversight with that. While not they're appointed by DC government, but they're not paid. They're not under a bonding oath like a different, another government worker who's paid would be. Uh, will present some concerns as well. But outside, I think it's a great initiative. I think the offices support that, but in terms of it being placed directly inside of MOCRA, I don't think we have that capacity.
Right.
Mhm.
Will Morka submit written testimony regarding Project Homecoming for the record for that hearing?
Yes, yes, and I do apologize for the delay, and getting the council that information. But yeah, there should be a written testimony
Thank you.
coming forth soon.
I appreciate it. The record closes on January 27th, so as long as we have it by close of business on the 27th, we're good. Well, I want to thank you for your testimony, for stepping forward to this nomination, and wish you much success.
Yes, thank you. Not just just closing remarks. I do remember when we first met, so I do know that you are passionate and committed uh, to the returning citizen population. That it didn't just start today, and it was many years ago. And your advocacy for it. And so our office, we definitely appreciate having that partnership with the council and yourself as we move forward.
I appreciate it, and I look forward to working with you into the partnership as well. Um, and as I said earlier, I'm excited to see you in this role. I really am. So I want to thank all of our public and government witnesses for being here today. For anyone who was not able to testify today, written testimony is encouraged and will be made part of the official record. Anyone who's interested may submit additional testimony through the dedicated webpage for this hearing on the council's online hearing management system. If you don't know where to find that, you can contact the Committee on Housing at housing@dccouncil.gov or call 202-727-8270. The record for this hearing will remain open until close of business 2 weeks from today on Thursday, January 29th. If anyone listening is interested in learning more about the work of this committee or my office, please sign up to hear from us at robertwhiteatlarge.com. That concludes the committee's business for today. The time is 12:21 p.m. and this hearing is adjourned.